Hey everybody, it's Tuesday. It's the last day of January. I can't believe a month is down already. January 31st, 2023. It's Tuesday, so that means it's time for Gimbalabs Playground. We get together every week at this time for anybody to present on something they're working on, whether it's a project you have or an organization you're starting, or just a loose idea that you're trying to figure out. We're trying to make this space for people to come together and make sense of complicated things like monads, for example, that Dan just raised right before we went live. So we're here with Logan from Clarity DAO today. You were here a couple months ago. It's hard to keep track of time anymore. For the pitch competition. I'm really excited for you to be here today to kind of share out what you guys are working on and how you're conceiving of Clarity DAO at a high level. Welcome.
Yeah. Absolutely. I hope this is an enjoyable playground for everyone. Really, the plan here is I'm going to share screen. We're going to talk about a lot of topics surrounding governance and how we think about DAO governance and the different kind of governance tooling that's needed to actually come to a decision. And then there's a little case study of how another established DAO does their governance. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then what I really want to do is we actually launched a product on Cardano today. It's kind of snapshot, but on Cardano. So I'll show you that. We'll talk about which governance phases it's good for, and we'll also kind of show you what the on-chain protocol will look like. So that's really the plan for today. So without further ado, I'm going to share screen, talk at you a little bit, but I hope to very soon open up the floor so that everyone can add some perspective to the conversation. Awesome. I believe everyone can see the screen.
Yep, looks good.
Great. So yeah, today I'm talking about Clarity. So this is a project that I'm a part of. To give a little background on who is a part of the project, who we are. So one of my good friends and co-founder, his name is Justin. He's not on this call today, but we started getting really fascinated with smart contracts and how they could, revolutionize existing systems. And then we were introduced to the concept of DAOs. And when kind of trying to understand what needed to be built on Cardano, we knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs on Cardano. And deciding what needed to be built on Cardano, we saw that other chains had things like Aragon and DAO Stack and SuperDAO. So there was these non-technical DAO creation and DAO management tools that Cardano didn't have, but other ecosystems had. So Cardano's kind of earlier on this development process. So what happened is we went into Catalyst. We actually made friends with the guys at Labs, and we made a joint venture with Labs in order to create Clarity, which is really all about building software that helps communities make impactful decisions together. We have a few different products that cater to different stages of the governance kind of process. So let's talk about the governance process a bit. So governance really is a complex process. It can be handled in a lot of different ways, but how we try to think about it is that there's three overarching phases. So you have the refinement phase, the decision phase, and the enforcement phase. So the refinement phase is where most of governance takes place. So this is when an idea is introduced to a community. So, maybe you want to swap some asset for another asset and you want to get the community's opinion on it. Maybe you want to spend some of the community's funds to hire a developer to build a product. This is when ideas get introduced and commented on and refined. So you could use tools like Discord to refine. You could use tools like Twitter Spaces to have an open dialogue to refine these ideas. You could have a community call like we're doing right now. So there's a lot of different refinement techniques involving governance. And then you have the decision phase. So this is for an actual, a decentralized organization, this would be an on-chain vote, where after the on-chain vote happens, a decision is confirmed, and then you move into the enforcement phase. So the enforcement phase is when, in Clarity Infrastructure's case, it's when the on-chain vote happens, it reaches a governance threshold, and smart contracts automatically enforce the decision that was made to send funds from the treasury to a wallet address, per se. Now, you can have different types of enforcement. So right there, I just talked about the example of having a community-wide vote guard the treasury, but you can also have a multi-sig wallet, which is a lot of existing tools such as SuperDAO and Upstream on Ethereum. They provide multi-signature governance-based organizations on that ecosystem. So these are how we think about the different phases of governance. And I'll pause here real quick in case there's any questions, but the plan after this is to kind of show you the product we just launched today, how it pertains to these different phases. But for right now, I'd love to just kind of open up a conversation about these different governance phases and what you guys think of each. Go ahead, I see a hand up. I can't hear you. It looks like you're talking.
Hear me now? Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, Curtis, go ahead. I'll follow up after you.
You're up first, eh?
Okay, cool, sure. Yeah, the question that immediately sort of came to me, Logan, was there a specific problem that you are particularly looking to solve? Because I find that whenever people sort of approach a problem and try and do it in a generalistic way, the intent is noble, but I find that further down the line, maybe it sort of occurs. Well, the thing that kind of rears its head is, I mean, some motivation and sort of incentives can be affected, but also it might sort of get to a point where you're solving for a problem which isn't specifically a problem within the context that you're looking to solve for it. Right. I mean, it's one thing to kind of look at, hey, they're doing this over there, so we're just gonna do it over here. Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah. So is there any particular problem that you're looking to solve that then informed the emergent nature of how you then proceeded?
Yeah, so really the main problem that we're looking to solve is to provide a non-technical governance solution for Cardano projects. So we talk to, you know, a wide variety of projects. For example, we're working with Genius Yield and Genius X to provide their on-chain governance infrastructure. Also other projects on Cardano, smaller projects as well. And the overarching, you know, feedback that we got before we started building this is, hey, yeah, we want to have on-chain governance. We would like to have automatically executing proposals, but the infrastructure just doesn't exist yet. And then with the product we've launched today, the problem that we're trying to solve is that you can't just have an on-chain vote right off the bat. You need to have tools to refine ideas and understand and make sure that you don't have a proposal going to an on-chain vote that isn't, you know, a serious and valid proposal. So I would say, in short, those are the kind of the problems we're trying to solve. But that's a good point you bring up. You know, it's one thing to have this idea of the future and try to wedge a solution into a problem. So we are still figuring out, you know, what exactly are the use cases that can adopt decentralized governance. And, you know, I think DeFi protocols is one in the blockchain ecosystem. And, you know, there's other NFT projects that want decentralized governance for their communities. But yeah, that would be my short answer to that question. I appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah, and just to also respond to Aid, like I've definitely seen a need for communities to organize and govern themselves in a much different manner than before without the hierarchy structure. So I think this is, you know, a must for the progression of DAOs themselves. So Logan, my question is, with this slide you have up, you have the 3 phases. Is there, or have you come across a need for an additional phase or strategy where it brings it back to the refinement stage? You've implemented your refinements, your decision, and your enforcement, but now, you know, you can get your community to respond to that and reiterate and refine again. Is there a particular strategy that can do that?
Yeah, I think that's That's a good point. I do really feel that ideas often spend most time in the refinements stage, especially when a lot of people are offering their perspectives. Um, I think with this example, we really tried to simplify the governance process into 3 buckets to make it kind of an easy flowing diagram. But yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to you in terms of a strategy of bringing an idea back to the refinement stage. I think that's something that, it's going to be different for each community as well.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, Dan, it looks like your hand's up as well.
Yeah, hey. Logan, I was just curious as to the choice of words in the boxes.
Mhm.
I get the refinement and the decision. Enforcement sounds to me like you're going to send the boys round and give someone a kicking if they don't do what you want them to do. Could a gentler word such as action or something like that be used? It just seems that it almost sounds as if you're going to enforce something against people's will rather than an action that they've decided they want to take.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think the idea is that you're enforcing the will of the people because there has been a vote about it. I think another good word for it could be execution, because that's essentially what happens is after a vote happens, the decision gets executed on chain. But yeah, I think you could swap and trade a lot of these words to mean different things and represent similar things.
Yeah, it's just, as I say, enforcement to me, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person who finds it a kind of, yeah, it's a sort of, yeah, it's like the government are going to send the police in to break up a protest march.
Yeah, maybe enacting might be fitting because yeah, language is super important because I mean Logan, you suggested execution. The immediate thing that came to mind.
Someone's going to get their head chopped off.
Exactly.
I mean,
anyway.
I'm looking at it from a developer's perspective, right? And as a developer, and I totally agree with what Dan and A are saying, but at the same time, as a developer, enforcement is like I can rely on the fact that my code is going to execute, consistently, and I know that so enforcement's like reinforcing that the parameters of this environment are going to be enforced. But when it comes to the human aspect, I can relate to what Dan and A are saying too.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, there's different perspectives on all these words. I guess where I come from in terms of my perspective is you have a decision that happens on chain, and then the smart contracts, they enforce the rules. They carry out the rules, they execute the decision. So those are like the words that trigger like a DAO action autonomously happening in my head. But enacting and like creating an action is definitely some good words you can use. So to kind of carry on this conversation, unless anyone has any other questions, I'll pause for a sec. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a quick one actually. This kind of brings up an important point. Who is the audience, right? Because if it's developers, then I suppose the presumption is that you're creating more of an environment where it's not so much about the fuzziness of decision making, it's more of the depending on sort of computers to execute a particular set of rules, compared to, I don't know, like you can kind of take the approach of being on one, leaning towards one end where human agency is really human agency and opinion and the fuzziness of decision making is sort of taken out, right? Because it's just, execution, from a machine standpoint. We had smart contracts now. In the future will be robots, District 9 type, environment, or you're looking at, leaning towards the opposite side where it's feedback loops dealing with a lot more sort of fuzziness, and not building upon this idea of trustlessness, which, again, going back to words, if you're entirely relying on code and not relying on each other to do the best thing and create incentive loops, in order to have that within society, like, I can kind of see, like, two different diverging paths there. But yeah, it's not particularly maybe a question that I'm looking for you to answer now, Logan, but just it's kind of a distinction which I think you and everyone who you're working with kind of needs to understand. What's the vision of the world that you're trying to get to in the end, kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. Depending on the audience, definitely can talk about it different ways. So I guess to push on with this and maybe add to that comment, I'll show you kind of the tools we're building for communities on Cardano, so they can kind of come together and make decisions as a group and leverage collective intelligence. I think that word was tossed around in your Discord. So I guess quickly to talk about this is interesting. So we have wow, it's skipping around a lot. We have Uniswap's voting process here. So I guess reading through each point it doesn't particularly get at the point I want to make, but what you see here is that they have an initial forum. So that's in the refinement stage. They have a discussion on a Twitter space. That's in the refinement phase. They have an off-chain snapshot temperature check. That's in the refinement phase. They have an updated snapshot proposal in response to feedback. That's also in the refinement phase. So 5 of their 6 steps are all in this refinement stage. So these refinement tools are where, we saw there's a need for communities to have good refinement tools, so that when they do escalate it to on-chain voting, that proposal is very serious. That proposal is something the community has support for. That proposal is something the community has talked about. The community understands that this proposal. So for the refinement phase of this, we have built this application. So this just went live today on our website. If you go to clarity.community, then click the governance tab in the navigation bar, you'll come to this. So this is a dashboard of all these different communities on Cardano that are gonna leverage this tool to be able to have community votes. So I'll kind of just give a quick demo. So how it works is you connect your wallet, and then once you connect your wallet, it'll come here soon. So my wallet's connected, and it shows that I have a voting power of 32. So that's because I have 32 of the Clarity NFTs in my wallet. So I have 32 kind of influence in the Clarity community. So what I can do is I can go to any different DAO. If I want to go to Clarity's portal, I can click into Clarity's portal, and I'm able to see all of the proposals that Clarity is voting on. So we just had a vote conclude of what feature should we build out next for this app. Then here's an example one of what's your favorite Cardano project. You can really create anything here. And other things you can do is you can come to the platform and look at other DAOs. So if you want to explore Genius's DAO and see what they're voting on, you can click into theirs. And then what we do is we allow DAOs on this platform to have their own kind of custom UI, so that you can kind of have your own governance portal. And what this is all about the refinement stage. So these votes, like you do have your voting power correlated with a governance token based off the organization you're in, but these votes are not stored on chain. They are not automatically executing through a smart contract. So this is really just for the the community to come together, have a say on different things. There could be a bounty where you're, suggesting different investments that the DAO should make. There could be a proposal from the core team about, what features should the technical team focus on in the short term. So that's a little bit about, what we do. And then with this app, I think one thing we can do is I can show you is, here's a test proposal. Should we put pineapple on pizza? And if I connect my wallet, if I have their governance token in my wallet, which I think I have a few gens in here. So I have 35 gens. I can come over here, and this vote has concluded, but I would just be able to cast my vote by clicking a button. But yeah, that's kind of the refinement stage. So, admins are able to post proposals and then get, community feedback from anyone that holds that particular governance token, to really leverage collective intelligence and start to get further along in the proposal process. Curtis, I see your hand up.
Yeah, not trying to interrupt. Just feel free to ignore me until there's a break. So what you just showed is great. And I'm curious, when there is a conversation, when the community themselves want to participate in that conversation, do you guys have a plan to include like the source to that, whether it's Discord or Twitter, however the project themselves wants that conversation to be had? Does that link to the vote itself or to the portal? Can I find those conversations? Sorry.
So actually, that's funny you say that. So in our last vote, the winning option was a bounty forum within this application. So we do want to have integrations with Discord. Maybe you have conversations on Notion. See, those are platforms that we'll be able to integrate this with, so you can have the conversation in conjunction with the vote. But what we're going to add the ability to comment on each of these proposals and each of these submissions for the proposals. So we're going to add a little kind of conversation feature within this, because our community said, hey, that's what we want you guys to focus on next. And, we'll also try to have those integrations with these platforms that communities already use.
Perfect. I do see, not to keep on going with this, but I do see a need eventually with what we're seeing in Gimbalabs, a conversation surrounding the code itself. So when it comes to actual on-chain code, GitHub conversations and such as well. But no, this looks great. I love it. Thanks, Logan.
Yeah, thank you. I see another hand up.
Yo, yeah, just a quick one here. The previous points got me to wondering whether you guys are looking to tap into listings like that of Messari. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but Messari, I dropped a link in the chat there. Messari have this basically this dashboard from sort of like different DAOs, I suppose, and you're able to sort of, I suppose, keep up with what's going on, but in a kind of aggregated way within that particular environment. I'm just wondering, or it might be a bit too early, but given the trajectory that you're going in, I just want to sort of ask that. Yeah, and maybe in part of that, asking whether you're looking for this to just be Cardano specific in the end, or you're looking to at some point open up to different chains, because it sounds to me the trajectory seems like you'll get to that point. So I suppose those two things are kind of related or linked.
Yeah, so in terms of being multi-chain, I think we're very focused on the Cardano niche right now. This is, we have good Haskell smart contract developers, and we see that Cardano is kind of an unplowed field here, where this infrastructure needs to exist. There's demand for it. There's communities that want to operate in a decentralized way on Cardano. So we are really focusing on Cardano right now, but that's not to say that eventually maybe we can bring some solutions to different chains that involve decentralized governance. And I'm not sure if I really caught the first question, if you want to repeat it.
Aggregation. I dropped the link in the chat. Misari has this basically like board where different environments or different DAOs from different contexts. At the moment, it might just be ETH centric, but I suppose it kind of builds on Curtis's point where you've got many different inputs, right? In terms of where conversations or information lives, but also it's important to sort of, think of the environment where the votes are, right? Because say someone might be, part of different DAOs, which are interact or which are using different voting solutions, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, just being able to have from the front end, the user experience, the end user experience, having the portability of the card, so to speak, right? In a different environment where they can be able to see, oh, where it doesn't matter whether Clarity DAO are the ones who formatted it, or is from a different environment, like being able to see, okay, I'm part of this community, of these different communities. They're using different structures in terms of creating the card equivalent, right? All the inputs. All that matters to me is having them all in one particular context, and obviously the linkability of where all the information lives, and the ability to just click and vote on whatever it is that needs voting on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely interested in that aggregation point where, if there's one place you want to come to figure out stuff about DAOs on Cardano, we want to be that place. So kind of being the hub of Cardano DAOs is a ambition of ours. And with that, we're part of the DAO Alliance, which is a group of people building DAO tools. And with that group, we all want to see kind of an inoperable future, not have a few protocols that are very siloed and don't interact with each other. So we're definitely trying to build that foundation of kind of interoperable, to create an interoperable future within the DAO landscape on Cardano, and that's very important to us, because yeah, like you're seeing now, there's all these different DAOs, and I can click into them. I can figure out how to participate in them. And I think this is a pretty good segue into the product that we've been working the better part of a year now to actually build out. Hold on, I think it's here. It is. So this is the non-technical on-chain infrastructure that we've been building, and what I'll do is I'll kind of be the voiceover of this video, and then after this, that's mostly everything that I wanted to show everyone, and we can open up the conversation. So this is a product meant for the decision and action or execution or whatever you want to call it phase. So this is on-chain infrastructure. Smart contracts run everything. They verify that certain governance thresholds are met before they automatically execute a transaction. So this is what this looks like. We're pretty much trying to bring Aragon, but to Cardano. So this is what it looks like to participate in DAO on this platform. So you have kind of a Slack type feel. You can go through each of your different DAOs, and then you can click proposals and see what this DAO community is voting on. So in this example, you come to the Clarity DAO, you're able to see all these different proposals that are being voted on. And then what it looks like to cast an on-chain vote. You can see that you have to be staked to the DAO. You can see your voting power. And that's what it looks like to vote. You just kind of click a button, click confirm, and then you'll sign a transaction, and it'll cast an on-chain vote for you. And then this is what it looks like to create a DAO. This is off-chain information here. So you're able to put in the name of your DAO, your logo, your link, so that you're easily discoverable on this aggregated platform that we're just discussing. Then you're also able to do things to implement centralization into your decentralized organization. That's feedback we got from a lot of people, is that, hey, we don't want to operate in a completely decentralized manner right off the bat. So maybe you want to gate who can create proposals, what wallet addresses have the power to create proposals, while you're getting your feet off the ground and starting to create your DAO strategy. But these rules are made transparent to the community, and as time goes on, you can dial up decentralization. And then this is what it looks like to actually customize the smart contract that governs your DAO. So here you have the policy ID, and you're able to create thresholds. Spend a little more time on this one. You're able to create thresholds. So you specify the policy ID, and then how much of this governance token do you have to have staked to the DAO in order to create a proposal? How much of this governance token has to co-sign a proposal for it to move from draft phase to on-chain voting phase? And then for the proposal to be approved, how much of this token has to approve it to actually affect the treasury? Then the other thing you can do is control the pipeline. So here, you can control how long is the draft phase, how long is the voting phase, etc. So you get to customize all of these things that are enforced by smart contracts for your organization. And then I think this is one of the coolest parts of Clarity. It's the creating of proposals part. So here you'll see that it's going to be kind of a drop-down menu of different proposal effects. So you can see spend treasury funds and update governance parameters. Out of the box, we're going to provide those to every DAO for free. And we're going to keep adding things to this proposal, effect marketplace. So it could be a treasury swap. So the DAO might want to make a proposal to swap ADA to IUSD, whatever it may be. And you can easily make a proposal that pops up a template. So you click it, and then it pops up a template. So you don't have to code. You don't have to be a technical brain. All you have to do is fill out this online form, and then it submits an on-chain proposal that is considered in the draft phase for people to co-sign. And yeah, your whole community can vote on it. So that's those are the products that Clarity is bringing to market. And we're really excited about the proposal because after a voting threshold is met, we're using Agora, which is like an open source governance protocol for Cardano projects. So after a proposal passes on Agora, you can run any smart contract effect on it. So you could run an effect that changes the governance rules of a DAO. You could run an effect that spends the treasury money of a DAO. You could run an effect that moves money from the DAO treasury to an escrow account while it waits for something to happen to send it out. You could have a DAO, an effect that swaps proposal. So what we're doing is we want to make this a community-led kind of DAO treasury smart contract effect marketplace, where if you have an idea for a smart contract that maybe your DAO could use or another DAO could use, you're able to submit it to the protocol, and every time someone uses it, you're part of the reward mechanism that we implement into the marketplace. So yeah, that's happy to answer any questions, and I'll kind of stop there and we can make this a discussion now.
I'm curious, Logan, what's your income model for Clarity? I mean, are you packing stuff onto all these transactions with voting, or people paying a fee to make proposal? Like where does this provide income to Clarity?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we talk about it a lot because we want to be fair.
I bet.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can derive value from a protocol like this, right? So what's fair to the end user, and what's going to keep us alive long enough so that we can keep building and try to create the impact in the world we want. So really, when we launch, it's going to be free. We're going to make it free. We're going to have people be able to try it. There are network costs associated with it. So you have to sign a few transactions to create a DAO, to initialize the governor, to create your treasury and things like that. But in the future, I think it's going to be kind of a freemium type thing where you have the free version, and then you can do certain things for an extra cost, premium features, such as maybe there's a premium proposal template that you would like to use for your DAO. But yeah, we're also thinking about small fees to create DAOs, create proposals, whatever it may be. So we're still pretty undecided on the business model, but we know at launch we want to make it as easy as possible so people can start using it and experimenting it. with it.
So I think anytime I hear people talking about governance in Cardano, like with the NFT communities, yeah, they hype each other up and they're a community, right? They love each other because they all have the same taste in JPEGs or whatever it is, and governance is easy in those situations. I mean, you talk about something like Genius Yield, everybody, there's real money in that, and so those guys are going to decide, which is, the knock on Catalyst, like whatever whale decides to actually engage with Catalyst and votes, he kind of decides what gets funded. But when we start talking about larger communities, like real communities, like a town of 50,000 who's gone all in on Cardano, and they got stake pools and they got dApps, and they're capturing and creating value with one another. It's the same problem we already have in Cardano, and when it comes to Catalyst and even protocol governance issues, like how do the voters get informed, right? What motivates, incentivizes, beyond just getting paid to vote, what motivates people to actually study the shit that they need to study to make an informed choice, and I think that's, this is something that for me is, like the obvious problem that, everybody I talk to at Input Output or the CF or even those so-called experts from Governance Alive or whatever they called themselves, nobody knows how to solve that issue, and I think that this is really something anybody who's dealing with DAOs really has to think about. And I'm not criticizing you if you haven't. I'm not criticizing if you don't have a solution to that problem. It's just like, to me, it's the boogeyman. It's the boogeyman. Like what gives you an informed community, and why should they get involved?
Yeah. So the boogeyman and the elephant in the room, I suppose you're saying, is that you can start a DAO, but your DAO is nothing without participation and people's buy-in. And that's true. Like, you can't have a good social network without people actually caring about it. You can't have a good charity without people caring about it. So what I really think is interesting with DAOs is grassroots movements. It's a small group of people that want to raise money to donate to, veterans, or I'm actually using this platform to help a soccer club fundraise. So the parents are eager to donate, but when they donate, they're excited to have an influence on how the money is used to help enhance their kids' experience and make the facility better. So there's a lot of different use cases. I think when you're talking these huge DeFi protocols with 50,000, 100,000 token holders, and most of these people are just buying those tokens because of price speculation, right? They're not buying it because they want to be involved. They're not buying it because they want to have a say in the decisions. They're buying it because, oh, this core team probably is going to make this token price go up, or reasoning along that lines. So what I really am fascinated by is these types of organizations where they're high impact. They might be small, but these people care. So those are the ones that create an engaged community. I don't think there's yes, you can incentivize people by giving them money. So you can say, hey, if you vote, you're able to receive X amount of our governance token, whatever. And incentivization is a very valuable thing, but I think the real way that you get people to be an engaged community member is by building a culture. You have to have everyone's nose pointing in the same direction. You have to have everyone understanding the goals of the organization. So, like you saying, I don't think there's a magic sauce of creating a DAO or creating a DeFi protocol where there's actually an engaged community that really cares and is logging on every day to understand the issues. I think that, you know, those are just some of my thoughts. I'll digress there, but I see 2 hands up now, so.
Great. Great work, Logan. I think it's possible as a business. I think it's possible to commoditize the taking decisions in the real world. It's possible to commercialize the need of the people to take decisions in a collective. For example, if we think about locks, for example, that is trying to commoditize the problem, the easy give easy solutions to the problems between humans and the environment, their particular environment. We are talking about the possibility of commoditize the necessities of the humans. And I think in this case, Clarity is trying to do that. And in the future, in the near future, I think that many decisions have to be taken in the real world. And so you have a business in that. That's my opinion. And congratulations for your work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Go ahead, eh? Yeah, we need your sound again.
Check. Okay, there we go. Apologies. That tends to happen every now and then. Appreciate your patience. Yeah, I'm curious about because obviously when it comes to voting, you need a sense of identity. So my question is really sort of around identity. And Megs, if you could come up and ask the datum state UTXO mix, I would like to because I don't think Logan has had the time to be following the chat, but there's an interesting suggestion or point that Mix made in the chat that I think would be interesting to hear your take on. But yeah, identity. You don't really have much if you don't have identity. So I'm just curious what your thoughts around that are.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with launch, with the MVP, your identity, your ability to participate in a DAO, your ability to vote, that is solely based off you staking the governance token to a DAO. But in the future, what we're planning on doing is integrating with decentralized identity solutions. So maybe your DAO is a research DAO, and you want to make sure that everyone in your DAO has a certain type of degree from a university. So instead of just making their membership based on if they have the governance token, their membership is now based on, do they have the governance token? And also, do they have this verifiable decentralized credential that shows that they're qualified to be in our DAO? So that's kind of how we think about it. And I think that the digital identity space is still developing, and we're keeping a close eye on, where the integrations can lie. I know there's things like Proof Space, there's things like Atala Prism. So we're really looking closely at, what synergies can we have with decentralized identity solutions so that DAOs are more than just a token hoarding kind of membership-based organization.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
question. I get excited about identity and DAOs. I think I'm an optimist of the future. I don't know if you can tell by the way I talk, but I really do believe in decentralized systems. And I do believe there's a lot of better sources of truth that we can create through these decentralized systems, whether it's for, people donating to organizations or for shareholders of a corporation. Like there's better ways to do things. And I think that, right now the technology is still early, but I really do think it's going to seep its way into the real world. And I think having identity attached to votes in a decentralized system is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because part of reputation, because then otherwise it's lacking in the sort of foundational aspects. But yeah, so as we wait for Mix, is it possible, Curtis, do you want to maybe try and explain what Mix just give us some insight as we wait for Mix, and then he'll be able to chime in hopefully once he gets his mic sorted out. Do you want to just chime in with regards to the conversation you guys have been having there?
Mix, I don't know, is it not working for you?
I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Is it okay?
Sounds good to me.
Great. So, okay, go ahead. I mean, I will talk after. After. Who wanted to talk? I mean, did you refer?
If you could bring up the conversation about the DAOs and everything you brought up in the chat.
Actually, reading some blog posts about the governance technology that IOG, the governance technology. One of the point that they were that when this same technology, so we do somehow sure that many do so.
Mix, your mic is breaking. I don't know whether it's a mic or it sounds like more of the connection. Or is it just me?
Yeah, it's breaking up here too.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds like a poor
Is
connection.
Piotr.
Someone needs to read the chat then.
Someone is spying on Mix.
Sorry, but
I'm reading the chat right here.
as Piotr, is it better now?
Maybe, do you know any Morse code?
If I had my camera, yeah, you could maybe read the Morse code from my eyelid, but
It's good now. It's good now. Whatever you've done, like don't move on. Don't move
it is good. Okay,
Yes.
so
Don't move it.
Yeah.
I think I found the issue. I was working on the project at the same time, and VS Code was I don't know something. Maybe Microsoft was spying on my code, the Bluetooth code. They wanted to put into chat GPT, so
never a
you
good
guys
idea.
could write.
Yeah.
So let me. So I'm sorry for this issue. Reading the technology that I bring, they are technology, and it means that any fully without going through many steps, they can use the whole block carbon. And the thing by the uniform, but
Yeah, Mix. I think we're in a similar situation again. It's kind of it's been breaking up for the last like 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I read a bit of the chat, so I mean, I couldn't make out too much of what was being said. Can people hear me?
So,
Yeah, I can hear you. I just don't think Mix can hear you. So
okay. All right, so
I can hear you. I can hear you guys. I can hear you, but You guys cannot hear me. I can hear you. Can you? Can
Max,
you
Yes,
hear
but you're
me?
breaking up.
every fifth word we get it, but it's enough to be able to like comprehend these complex thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, I'm gonna jump in here and just kind of move the conversation.
Cool.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Sorry about that, Mix. I'm reading your thoughts in the chat. So one I see here is, can we go full on-chain for these phases? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but I don't think it's necessary. The way I think about this, and feel free to piggyback or disagree with this, but the only things that having something stored on chain, it's like great, right? It's awesome, but that's there forever. Like that is an immutable record of what has happened. So do you really need kind of every refinement, discussion, and initial idea to be stored on a immutable ledger? I would argue no. So how do we, leverage the technologies that have already been in existence, so, Web 2 technologies, and combine them with Web 3 technologies to take care of these three phases without having to go fully on chain? That's kind of the way I think about it. I think that there's going to be processes that should be on chain, such as, treasury spending, something very important, or governance rule updates. But if you're just talking about, hey, how should we design this Twitter banner, then I don't know if that's the type of thing that needs to be on chain. But that's kind of how I think about that. And then before Curtis, you hop in, the other thing that stuck out to me here was a DAO made of DAOs. I think every DAO should be a DAO of DAOs. So what I mean by that is that, in a typical, legacy organization, you have the C-suite, you have the marketing team, you have the whatever it may be, but you might have an overarching DAO, and then you have a sub DAO that is full of 5 people who focus on the marketing aspects of the DAO. And maybe the DAO has an investment arm, and you have a sub DAO that has votes and an allocation of funds from the main DAO treasury. So I think that a DAO for DAOs, it's awesome. But I'll pause there, and Curtis, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, this was just, I wanted to maybe speak to what Mix was saying in response to what you said. So I would agree that, in general, we don't need to see that conversation, the deliberation of the community on chain, but there might be a particular use case where they want to use that as a metric to weight somebody's vote. How much are you participating in this communication, in this conversation? How much are you right? And that can potentially weight your vote itself. So there might be a use case. I can't say that there is never a use case where having that conversation on chain is valuable. But I would agree with what you said, that in general, that's not. I just wanted to kind of throw out what I understood from Mix is all. Sorry.
There's also an idea suggested there of managing state using a datum, I suppose acting like some sort of an oracle for an aggregator type implementation. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that, but it's a shame the connection is letting us down right now. But yeah, Logan, go for it.
I don't know too much about, the nitty-gritty technical side of things. I think it would be awesome to have Tomas, who is our lead on-chain developer, on here, because I know that, when we think about integrating with DEXs, for example, to allow seamless treasury swaps for DAOs, one thing that has to be stored in the swap is a datum. I'm not exactly sure why, but if the DEX doesn't process their swaps with a datum included, then it's hard for us to integrate with them just the way that Agora works. But I don't know too much about that, so I won't pretend I can really talk about it too much.
Yeah, that's absolutely cool. Appreciate your candor. Yeah, I suppose now as we come up to the conclusion, I'm curious to hear whether you have any asks of the community, because the gimbal community is made up of all sorts of different people. You've spoken about the board, Clarity board. I've shared that link in the chat. Yeah, just any calls to action.
Yeah, I mean, really, I appreciate you guys. Every time I come on here, we have an insightful conversation about something that I really do care about. So, I mean, the first call to action is to know I'm like thankful for you guys, and the Gimbalabs community is always up to some cool stuff, and doing important stuff for the ecosystem. I'm going to be getting all of the DAOs that are signed up to use the platform to start, utilizing it to put in proposals, and if there's any way you want to interact there. But also, we're pioneers of building non-technical DAO infrastructure on Cardano. So if that's something you guys are interested in, one thing that Clarity lacks is kind of a presence of engaged community members. Like, we have a very good technical team. We have people who deeply care about the product and work on it full time every day. And really where we're lacking is having more people involved in our community and giving feedback and helping to spread the word that, hey, these tools are coming to Cardano, and having these deep discussions about, okay, what features should we add? What's technically possible? All this type of stuff. So if there's any interest of anyone, in the Gimbalabs community to be a part of, our community and really discuss DAO infrastructure and DAO tooling and decentralized governance, that's stuff we care deeply about and are looking for people to engage with and call our friends, really.
Awesome. I was just waiting because I don't want to feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation here. But it seems like people are mulling over what you've shared here. One sort of concluding thought or question I think would pair well with what you just communicated there is, I am curious about your current legal structure, right? Like what is the current entity? Is it a limited company? Where is it based out of? What has been your thinking in that regard? I suppose that would be speaking to where the world is right now. If you could, talk about that, because I think that's quite interesting. Selfishly, as someone who's been thinking a lot about that kind of stuff, I'm curious to hear how other people are going about it. And then the other side would be, in an ideal world, like what's the end point that you're hoping to to arrive at? Like, would Clarity, at what point would you like, or maybe not, but is there like an imagination or an imagined future where Clarity ceases to be a legacy legal entity and exist purely within this hypothetical idealistic version of a world that you're hoping to build?
Yeah, some loaded questions there. So what we have is we're a Delaware C Corp. So the parent entity of Clarity is a Delaware C Corp. In order to get a little bit of funding so that we could pay our team to launch the product, we launched a Clarity Protocol LLC. After we launched the protocol, we tentatively plan to launch a token, and then this LLC it'll be closed, and the protocol will operate completely as a DAO, with the Delaware C Corp entity overseeing its operations, and we're slowly going to make it more and more decentralized as we feel it's ready. So that's our plan. And I've talked to so many lawyers and gotten so many different perspectives on the legal landscape of DAOs. It's different everywhere you go. I think there's a good setup and good argument to say that The association in Switzerland is a pretty good way to go about it, although it is expensive. Another decent way to go about it is the states that are recognizing DAOs as legal entities. But there's all sorts of different solutions. You can have cooperatives, because DAOs, you can design this organizational structure any way you want. So there's a lot of different legal frameworks that you can apply to, but that's kind of the overview of that. And I guess part of the question is, where do we want Clarity to get eventually? I want Clarity to be something that in 40 years' time, it's a self-innovating and self-evolving protocol that the community runs and that people innovate. I want this to be something that changes the world and makes it possible for everyone to have completely transparent governance and treasury management infrastructure. I wanted to create a better source of truth for organizations that use their communities and leverage their communities to operate. And I also hope that, it does seep its way into the real world and causes grassroots movements to really catch fire through this kind of technology we're building. It's a very visionary type of statements I'm making, but I really do think this type of stuff can change the world for the better, because the only thing constant in our world is change. So I think that, if we take little steps and have the ambition, we can keep along this track.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's been insightful to hear how you're thinking about things and how things have been built up so far. Yeah, interesting to hear you mentioned the Switzerland Association, because it feels like a lot of people are sort of like starting to go in that particular direction. But the cost, obviously, is another thing as well. But yeah, thanks for I think this is super important for us to keep sharing information so that as people learn about a particular thing, a particular structure they're approaching, to sort of to communicate that outward. You mentioned raising funds. Like, how have you gone about that? Catalyst, privately, like, how public have you been about your spending? And I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, completely open book. Most of our funds have come from Catalyst. So we've gotten 4 proposals through, I think, 3 different funds funded. So that's how we've been thriving / surviving. And then we had a small angel and family friends round. So we can get to the point where we're going to launch this product. So we're really close. We're dealing with the final bits of integration from the front end and the smart contracts, just displaying information properly and making sure all of that works properly. So we're getting close with it. But yeah, that's kind of the funding situation. Mostly Catalyst funds, a small angel round, and that's been it so far.
It's exciting, man. I'm excited to see how the rollout goes the next few weeks. And thanks for the preview here.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's it going putting in front of other folks?
Good. I think a lot of the DAO kind of owners are excited to have kind of their own little governance portal. I think most people are more excited for like the on-chain infrastructure, but I think this is a important kind of step to prove the concept of making decisions together. So overall positive, yeah.
Good. Good. Any last questions or action steps before we wrap up today?
I just can live without saying that you said something very valid and very important, and especially with DAOs, which is that the only constant is change, and the vision of having a self-invigorating community of communities, which is the DAO of DAOs, is so inspiring. So thank you, man. I really I have a few words to say, but if something, just this is a dream, especially because you have the courage to start doing something like this, and everybody that's started out have that type of courage that many of us don't have. We just, and then the reality is governance is the toughest part of everything that is happening now in the change that we are experiencing. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I kind of have a weird story. Like I was playing professional soccer, and then I caught the blockchain bug a few years earlier, and I just thought that this technology can change the world, so I want to be involved in it. It's there's a lot of moving parts and ups and downs, and a lot of people look at you sideways when you talk about your ideas, but I do believe I do believe that this technology will find its way into the real world. We just gotta keep pursuing, in my opinion, non-technical solutions so people don't understand what's going on in the back end. It just happens for them. Hey, you got your hand up again.
Yeah. It occurred to me that there's one actually one quick thing. It's never quick, as Lockhart would, or Q would gleefully point out. You mentioned that the football, or in your case soccer team, is the context which you're sort of trialing stuff. I'm assuming you're creating sort of like this feedback loop, and now you just mentioned that that's what you used to do before sort of jumping into crypto. That makes a lot of sense. It answers my very first question, which is like, what's the personal problem which you're looking to solve, which which allows you to have that that feedback loop. So with that, a quick thing that I'll just add on to that is it would be interesting for more of the conversation around integrating sports to happen. So recently NMaker onboarded onto their team this lady, I forget her name, who has quite the track record. I think at some point she even worked for FIFA or some organization at that scale. So I think sports is huge, right? Because the fandom and the relationship between teams, the leagues, and corporate sponsors, right, is quite huge. So there's a real opportunity within sports. I think it would be cool if more conversations around that happened. The question that occurred to me is, of late we've been seeing a lot of litigation come to projects that have launched tokens, even governance tokens, right? So for long there's been this this perception that there's no way that a governance token could be perceived as being a security. But of late, over the last few months, weeks, we've seen the Howey test being applied to governance tokens, and that being or enforcement, to go back to that word, enforcement actions being been taken. So I'm just curious, you showed us the user experience of starting a DAO, and subsequently, I suppose a proposal, but more so the DAO, entering in the policy ID and so on. I'm curious, like, at what point, like, you've spoken to lawyers, obviously, but I'm curious to hear your thinking about liability and creating a tool which then, I suppose, is part of that whole conversation or that whole interaction.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So we are a service provider. We are a governance service provider. We don't get involved in the minting of tokens. We don't get involved in token distribution. So that's how we feel, we don't have to have the liability of, there's going to be a disclaimer where you're going to be like, hey, like, we just want to make sure you're doing nothing illegal with this token if you use our governance infrastructure, all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's a wild west with these types of things. I don't have, it sounds like you're pretty versed on the subject. I don't think there's too much else I can say. What I can say is that in the eyes of the law and in practice, DAOs cannot be considered DAOs unless they have participation. So this goes back to that earlier point of, if you want to be considered like a decentralized organization, you have to prove that, you have people actually participating in your votes. You can't just, say you're a DAO and then have 3 people sign a multi-sig wallet. And then the other point in terms of the governance token, just because you're a governance token doesn't mean your token doesn't do other things that can behave like a security. So how is your token a utility? Like, yes, your token might be a governance token, but it could also be, a million different other things. And you can have a utility token that's also a governance token, that's also a yield optimizer. It can get crazy. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to regulate this stuff. I hope that they come at it with the perspective of, okay, this can be used for good. This can be a technological innovation, and not come at it from a perspective of, oh, this can blow up our legacy system that's already cracking at the seams. So, I hope they see it as an innovation. And by they, I mean the regulators, all these different jurisdictions probably thinking about it differently. But in truth, I don't think we as people like really in the cryptoverse have a clear enough idea of what all these tokens will do and the consequences they will bring. And I don't think the regulators have a good enough idea either to make these rules. So legislation comes slowly, so everything has to evolve before real decisions are made.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, that's super insightful of how you're thinking about things. And yeah, as I said, like, it's important to get this information out, and shared, so that we can gradually, sort of share state and evolve state. And I do hope that others building similar things or within the space are as aware and engage with policymakers, because it's we can't just delusionally think that, oh, if we just build stuff within this context, we're going to somehow make the old obsolete. There has to be a transitional period, and in order to amplify the probabilities of policymakers or the actors within the legacy world to act in good faith, as you just highlighted there, we need to actually engage with them, right? So I think that's super important.
I think also with the identity point, when legislation comes, maybe your DAO membership has to be attached to your identity.
Exactly.
You can't invest in a stock if you don't have your identity attached. You can't, I think this whole anonymous type of a lot of people like to be anonymous in Web3. And I don't know how that pairs up with regulation. You need an identity attached. You need to make sure people are following the rules. You need to know who's doing what if you want to regulate it. Like, I think regulation is a good thing as long as it's done right. But I don't know. Everyone has different thoughts on that type of stuff.
True.
Just,
Cool. Thanks.
I think about privacy, and people conflate privacy with anonymity, and I particularly when it comes to voting issues, I don't care if that I voted in a particular group or for a particular issue, but it's kind of important to me that you don't know how I voted, right? Because it's not your business how I vote.
And this is a conversation that could keep us going, but we do have another meeting starting right now for the PBL planning team. So,
well, thank you guys for the insightful conversation and having given this opportunity to everyone to come on and talk about their projects. But yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy your PBL meeting.
Always, man. Thanks, dude.
Thanks for coming, Logan. Appreciate it.